Nathan Carter had always dreamed of space, but he never imagined it would lead him to this, standing in the grand throne room of an alien empress, shackled in chains of glowing energy. The air was thick with an unfamiliar scent, something metallic yet floral. Towering pillars of smooth black stone lined the chamber, each adorned with golden carvings of creatures he did not recognize. In front of him, seated upon a throne of shimmering crystal, was Queen Syra, ruler of the Varelian Empire. Her golden eyes studied him with intense curiosity, her long silver hair cascading over armored shoulders. Unlike the harsh-looking guards surrounding him, she looked pleased. "You are the one," she finally spoke, her voice smooth but commanding. Nathan's instincts screamed danger. He had crash-landed on an uncharted world after his ship's navigation malfunctioned. Before he could repair it, they came. Soldiers clad in obsidian armor, moving faster than any human could react. Within minutes, he was captured and taken aboard a massive alien warship. And now he was here. "I don't know what you're talking about," Nathan said, keeping his voice calm. "I'm just a pilot. I was exploring. If you let me go, I swear I'll leave your empire and never return." The Queen tilted her head. "You misunderstand, human. You were not brought here as a prisoner." Nathan raised an eyebrow and glanced at the glowing shackles on his wrists. "You have an interesting way of showing hospitality." A few of the guards stepped forward, but Syra held up a hand. They froze instantly. She rose from her throne, stepping down towards him, the long fabric of her royal attire flowing behind her. There was something unnerving about her movements, graceful yet powerful, like a predator studying its prey. "You are special," she said, stopping just a foot away from him. "Our ancient prophecies speak of a ruler who will rise beside me, a leader who will reshape the empire, a human." Nathan's heart pounded. "I think your prophecy is broken." Syra smiled, but it wasn't a warm smile. It was the smile of someone who had already decided something. "You will rule beside me," she continued as if he hadn't spoken. "You will be my king, and together we will make the Varelian Empire unstoppable." Nathan's stomach twisted. He had no intention of playing space husband to an alien queen, no matter how powerful or beautiful she was. "Yeah, that's not happening," he said firmly. Syra let out a small, amused breath. "I expected resistance. You are human, after all. Stubborn, defiant." She stepped even closer, lowering her voice. "But I do not accept refusal." Nathan clenched his fists. "Then you're going to be very disappointed." The Queen's eyes glowed for a brief moment. She turned and gestured to the guards. "Take him to the royal chamber. He will stay there until he understands his new role." The guards obeyed instantly, their grip strong as they pulled Nathan toward the grand doorway. He struggled, but the restraints made movement difficult. "This is a mistake," Nathan shouted. "I don't belong here." Syra didn't even turn to look at him. "You do now." The heavy doors slammed shut behind him. Inside the royal cage, Nathan was shoved into a massive room, larger than any place he had ever lived in. The walls shimmered like liquid silver, shifting and pulsing in a way that made his head spin. A balcony overlooked a sprawling alien city, its towering structures glowing under a violet sky. He rubbed his wrists as the restraints vanished, then turned sharply to the guards. "This is not a prison." One of them, a large warrior with glowing blue markings on his skin, smirked. "No, it is your home now. Welcome, King Nathan." The door sealed shut. Nathan exhaled slowly, his mind racing. He had to get out of here. This wasn't just about escape. If Syra was serious about making him her king, that meant he was trapped in an empire he didn't understand, with an alien ruler who refused to let him go. But one thing was clear. Nathan Carter was not going to be anyone's king, and he would find a way out. Nathan Carter paced back and forth in the massive chamber he had been locked inside. His mind was still reeling from everything that had happened. One moment, he was just an explorer lost in deep space. Now he was being forced into some kind of royal position by an alien queen. "This is insane," he muttered, running a hand through his dark hair. The room around him was nothing short of a palace. The walls shimmered with strange patterns, constantly shifting like living metal. A large bed, covered in silk-like material, sat in the center, too extravagant for his liking. To the side, an open balcony overlooked a futuristic alien city with floating platforms, towering spires, and rivers of glowing energy. It was breathtaking. It was also a prison. Nathan tried the doors again. He pressed his palms against them, searching for some kind of panel or hidden mechanism. Nothing. Figures, he sighed. Of course, they wouldn't make it easy. Just then, the doors slid open. Nathan took a step back, ready for another round of arguments, but instead of Queen Syra, a figure in silver armor entered. Unlike the guards, this one was smaller, leaner, definitely female. Her deep violet skin gleamed under the soft light, and her piercing golden eyes locked onto him. "I am Captain Celia, commander of the Queen's Royal Guard," she introduced herself. "You will address me as such." Nathan folded his arms. "Right. So, are you here to escort me to another royal meeting, or am I finally free to leave?" Celia didn't react to his sarcasm. "You are not a prisoner, human. You are the chosen consort of our queen. You should feel honored." Nathan laughed dryly. "Oh yeah, real honored. Being kidnapped and forced into a royal marriage with someone I don't even know. That's every human's dream." Celia's golden eyes narrowed. "Watch your tone. The queen is patient, but she has limits." Nathan clenched his jaw. He knew pushing too hard would make things worse, so he decided to change tactics. "Okay, let's say I accept this crazy situation," he said, forcing a calm voice. "What exactly does being king mean? Do I just sit next to her looking fancy, or do I actually have power?" Celia hesitated, which told him everything. "You would share responsibility over the empire," she finally said. "Your human mind brings a unique perspective. The Queen believes you are the key to uniting our forces and bringing new strength to the empire." Nathan raised an eyebrow. "And what if I say no?" Celia didn't answer. He exhaled sharply. "Right. I figured." Before he could ask more, another figure entered the room. Queen Syra. Nathan tensed as she walked forward, dressed in regal black and gold, her silver hair glowing under the room's soft lights. The moment she stepped inside, Celia bowed deeply and quickly exited, leaving them alone. Nathan forced himself to stand his ground. "I see you are still resisting," Syra said, her golden eyes unreadable. "Your stubbornness is fascinating." Nathan huffed. "Yeah, well, humans don't really like being forced into things." Syra stepped closer. "I am not forcing you, Nathan Carter. I am choosing you. That is a great honor in my empire." Nathan scoffed. "So I should just accept my fate and sit on a throne next to you?" Syra studied him for a moment, then spoke. "What if I told you that if you left, you would not survive?" Nathan frowned. "What's that supposed to mean?" "The Varelian Empire is not just ruled by me. It is surrounded by enemies. There are factions that would see you as a threat or a weapon to use. If you leave, you will be hunted. But here, you are protected." Nathan's mind raced. Was this a warning or a manipulation tactic? "So, my choices are stay and be your king, or leave and probably die," he said flatly. Syra smiled slightly. A simple way of putting it, but yes. Nathan let out a slow breath. His escape plan just got a lot more complicated. "Think about it, Nathan," Syra said. "You could have power, protection, a kingdom that worships you." She turned, walking toward the exit. "I will give you time to decide, but do not mistake my patience for weakness. You are meant to be mine, and I do not let go of what is mine." The doors closed behind her. Nathan clenched his fists. He needed a plan. Fast. Nathan Carter sat on the edge of the massive bed in his so-called royal chamber, staring out at the alien city beyond the balcony. The violet sky stretched endlessly, with floating platforms and glowing towers casting strange shadows across the horizon. It was beautiful, but it wasn't home. And it definitely wasn't freedom. His conversation with Queen Syra still echoed in his mind. She claimed he had two choices: stay and become her king, or leave and be hunted by enemies. But Nathan wasn't the kind of guy to accept being trapped. He needed a plan. His first step: understanding his enemy. A sudden chime interrupted his thoughts, and the doors to his chamber slid open. This time, there were no guards. Instead, a Varelian attendant, a woman with deep blue skin and a set of delicate horns curling backward, stepped inside. She carried a tray of food, setting it down on a table. Nathan eyed the meal. It was a strange mix of red fruits, white meat, and some kind of glowing blue drink. His stomach growled, but he didn't trust it. "I'm not hungry," he muttered. The attendant gave him a quick glance before lowering her head. "The queen ordered it. You must eat." Nathan sighed. Of course she did. Still, he needed information. He forced himself to stay calm and act casual. "You work for her, right?" he asked. The attendant hesitated before nodding. "What's your name?" Another pause. "My name is Mira." Nathan gave a small smile. "Nice to meet you, Mira. So tell me, how long does a queen usually keep a king against his will?" Mira's eyes widened slightly, and she immediately looked toward the door, as if afraid someone might be listening. "You should not speak that way," she whispered. Nathan leaned forward, lowering his voice. "Why?" "Because she'll get mad." Mira bit her lip. "Because she always gets what she wants. No one defies her for long." Nathan narrowed his eyes. "Has this happened before? Has she ever taken a king like this?" Mira didn't answer. Instead, she quickly turned and left the room, the doors sealing behind her. Nathan let out a breath. That reaction told him everything. The first test. A few hours later, the doors opened again. This time, Celia, the captain of the Royal Guard, entered. "You are summoned," she announced. Nathan didn't move. Summoned for what? Celia's golden eyes remained cold. "The queen wishes to see your skills." Nathan frowned, but didn't argue. He was going to need every opportunity to learn how this empire worked if he was going to escape. Two guards escorted him down a long golden hallway, the walls engraved with battle scenes of warriors wielding energy blades against monstrous creatures. Finally, they entered a grand chamber, a mix between a throne room and a war council. A large circular table sat in the center, with Syra at the head. Several high-ranking officials and generals stood around her. Nathan immediately sensed the tension. Some of them looked at him with curiosity, while others seemed displeased. "You honor us with your presence, King Nathan," Syra said smoothly, gesturing to a seat beside her. Nathan didn't sit. Still not a king. Some of the generals exchanged glances, but Syra only smirked. "Then prove you do not belong here. We are at war. A rival faction has taken control of one of our colonies, and I want your opinion on how to reclaim it." Nathan blinked. "Wait, you're asking me for military advice?" One of the officials scoffed. "What does a human know of interstellar war?" Nathan exhaled. He had expected this to be some kind of game, but this was a real test. He stepped forward, looking at the holographic map of the battlefield. His mind quickly scanned the information: enemy positions, defenses, supply routes. Then, something caught his eye. "Your fleet is approaching from here." Nathan pointed at a section of space. "But that's too obvious. If I were your enemy, I'd set up a trap, an ambush." The room went silent. Syra's eyes gleamed with interest. "Continue." Nathan studied the map. "You need a diversion. Send a smaller fleet as bait, Make them think it's your main force. When they attack, your real fleet should come from the opposite direction. The generals murmured among themselves. One of them, a large warrior with dark green skin, grunted. It could work. Zyra smiled. You see, you already have a mind for leadership. Nathan scowled. He hadn't meant to help her, but now he had proven his usefulness, which meant she wasn't going to let him go anytime soon. The Queen's weakness. As the meeting ended, Nathan walked beside Exira as they returned to the palace halls. You are impressive, she admitted. Your mind is sharp, strategic, exactly what I need in a king. Nathan clenched his jaw. You mean a prisoner? Cyrus stopped and faced him. For the first time, her expression softened slightly. You think I hold you here for power? Yeah, that's usually how these things work. Nathan shot back. Zyra was silent for a moment, then said, You do not understand. I chose you because I saw something in you. Something different. You do not fear me. Nathan frowned. And that's important to you. Zyra's golden eyes locked onto his. More than you know. Nathan didn't have a response. For the first time, he saw something in her gaze that wasn't cold control, but something else. And that made her even more dangerous. Nathan Carter sat on the balcony of his chamber, watching the alien city below. The sky was still a deep violet, filled with glowing ships drifting between towering spires. It was beautiful, but Nathan didn't care about that. His mind was racing with everything that had happened in the last few days. Queen Syra had tested him in the War Council. He had proven himself useful without meaning to. And now he was in even more danger. If he was useful to Syra, she had even more reason to never let him go. A soft chime echoed through the room. The doors slid open, and Captain Celia entered. As always, her posture was rigid, her golden eyes cold and unreadable. The Queen summons you, she said. Nathan sighed, pushing himself up. Yeah, I figured. He followed Celia through the long, golden hallways of the palace. The walls shimmered like liquid metal, shifting as they walked past. The palace was alive. In some way he didn't understand. It reacted to the Queen's will, just like her empire. Finally, they entered a grand garden, something Nathan hadn't expected to see inside an alien war palace. The air was warm, filled with the scent of strange, glowing flowers. Small streams of blue water ran between the pathways, and Queen Syra stood near the center, gazing at the sky. Nathan stopped a few feet away. I didn't know alien queens liked gardening. Syra turned, a slight smirk on her lips. Even rulers must have a place to think, Nathan. He folded his arms. So why am I here? Another war meeting. Zara studied him. You misunderstand, human. I do not keep you here only for strategy. I want to understand you. Nathan frowned. Understand me? What's there to understand? Zara took a step closer. Your mind works differently from mine. From my people. You are stubborn, defiant, unpredictable. Yeah, humans tend to be like that. But there is something else. Kyra continued, tilting her head slightly. You do not fear me. That is rare. Nathan gave a dry laugh. Oh, I'm plenty afraid. I'm just really good at hiding it. Zyra's golden eyes locked onto his. No, it is something more. Nathan didn't know what she meant, and he wasn't sure he wanted to. He shifted the conversation. You keep saying I'm your chosen king. But you rule an empire, alone. So why do you suddenly need me? Zyra hesitated. It was only for a second, but Nathan caught it. And that told him something important. There was a weakness here. I am powerful, Nathan, she finally said, her voice calm but serious. But power brings enemies. Many within my empire see me as too strong, too unchallenged. They fear what I might become. Nathan's mind worked fast. She's losing support. And you think marrying the human will change that? He asked, raising an eyebrow. Zyra stepped even closer. Not just any human. You. Nathan didn't step back. He refused to let her see any hesitation. Why me? Zyra gave him a small, knowing smile. Because you are different from them. And because, whether you realize it or not, my people are beginning to see you as something greater. Nathan clenched his fists. That's bad. Really bad. If her people started respecting him, then escaping would be even harder. He wouldn't just be running from Zyra. He'd be running from an empire that might see him as their rightful ruler. He needed to act fast. Before he could speak, a sudden explosion shook the palace. Nathan's body tensed. What the hell was that? A deep voice crackled through the air, a transmission, echoing across the city. To all Varelians, hear me. The time of Queen Zyra's rule is over. The rebellion has begun. Zyra's expression turned ice cold. Fools. Nathan's stomach twisted. Rebellion. That meant chaos. That meant an opportunity. Maybe even a way out. Zyra turned to Celia. Prepare my fleet. We will crush them before they grow stronger. Nathan knew what was about to happen. Zyra would use overwhelming force. She wouldn't negotiate. She wouldn't show mercy. And suddenly, an idea formed in his mind. Maybe he could use this rebellion to his advantage. The explosion rattled the palace walls, shaking the shimmering glass windows and sending a pulse of energy through the golden halls. Nathan Carter barely had time to react before Queen Zyra turned on her heel, her golden eyes burning with cold fury. Prepare the fleet, she ordered, her voice sharp as a blade. The rebels will regret this mistake. Captain Celia gave a swift bow before rushing out, her armored boots echoing against the stone floor. Nathan's mind raced. A rebellion. This could be my only chance. If there was a group bold enough to challenge Zyra's rule, then maybe, just maybe, he could use them to escape. But he had to be smart about it. If Zyra suspected anything, she'd lock him away in a cage he could never break out of. Looks like not everyone loves their queen, Nathan said, keeping his voice casual. Zyra turned toward him, her gaze unreadable. There will always be those who resist power. It is their nature to struggle, even when they know they cannot win. Nathan raised an eyebrow. Sounds like you've been through this before. Zyra didn't answer right away. Instead, she stepped toward the balcony, looking out over the sprawling city below. Smoke curled in the distance, where a section of the city was now burning. The rebellion has always existed in the shadows, she finally said. But now, they are bold. Too bold. Nathan saw an opportunity. And what if they have a point? Zyra turned sharply, her eyes narrowing. You dare question my rule? Nathan shrugged. I mean, if they didn't have a reason to fight, they wouldn't be blowing things up, would they? Silence hung between them for a moment. Nathan could feel the tension in the air, but he didn't back down. Then, Zyra did something unexpected. She sighed. It was subtle, barely noticeable, but it was the first time he'd seen her show anything close to exhaustion. You think I do not know their grievances, she said softly. You think I do not understand. Nathan frowned. Then why not talk to them? Find out what they want. Zyra let out a humorless chuckle. You are human. You believe in negotiation, in compromise. But my people see that as weakness. If I bend, even once, I will lose control. Nathan crossed his arms. And what if you don't bend? What if this war destroys everything, even your empire? Zyra's expression hardened again. That will not happen. Another explosion thundered through the sky, lighting up the city in a flash of red fire. The rebellion was growing bolder by the second. Nathan's heartbeat quickened. This was it, his chance. But he had to be careful. If Zyra saw him as a threat, she'd never let him out of her sight again. But if he played this right, he could make her think that he was an ally, someone she needed. So, he took a risk. Let me help, he said. Zyra narrowed her eyes. What? You said it yourself. I think differently. If you really want to crush the rebellion, maybe you need a different approach. Zaira studied him for a long time. Then, finally, she nodded. Very well, Nathan Carter, she said. You wish to prove yourself. Then you shall. Nathan forced a calm expression, but inside, his mind was already working. This was it, his first step toward freedom. Nathan Carter stood at the center of the war room, a massive chamber where Queen Zaira's generals and advisors had gathered. The walls were covered with glowing holographic maps showing the city and surrounding space. Red marks indicated rebel strongholds, while blue symbols represented the Queen's forces. Nathan kept his face calm, but inside, his heart was racing. This was his moment, his only chance. Zaira sat at the head of the table, her golden eyes fixed on the battle plans. The rebels are scattered across the city, but their forces grow with each passing hour. We must crush them now before they become a greater threat. The generals nodded in agreement. Nathan cleared his throat. Attacking them directly might be a mistake. Silence filled the room. Several high-ranking warriors glared at him. One of them, a broad-shouldered alien with dark green skin, scoffed. What does a human know of war? Nathan didn't flinch. Enough to know that if you strike now, you'll lose more than you gain. The rebels want you to attack in force. That's why they're baiting you with these explosions. Zaira raised an eyebrow. Go on. Nathan leaned forward, pointing at the map. Look at their movement. They aren't trying to win. They're stalling. That means they're waiting for something. Reinforcements. Maybe even outside help. If you attack now, you might walk into a trap. A murmur spread through the room. The generals looked at one another, some nodding in reluctant agreement. Zaira's eyes flickered with curiosity. And what would you suggest? Nathan took a slow breath. This was it, the moment he had been waiting for. Give me a small force, just a few of your best soldiers. Let me go in, talk to the rebels, and figure out what they really want. If I can end this without unnecessary bloodshed, your people will respect you more. The room went silent. One of the advisors shook his head. Ridiculous. The rebels will kill him. Another general added, or worse, they will use him against us. Nathan looked at Zaira. He could see the conflict in her eyes. She was a ruler who relied on strength, but she wasn't reckless. She had chosen him for a reason, and now she was considering his words carefully. Then she made her decision. You will go, Zaira said at last, but you will not be alone. Captain Celia will accompany you with a squad of my elite warriors. If this is a trap, I want it crushed immediately. Nathan forced a nod. Understood. Inside, his pulse was pounding. This was his chance to escape, inside the rebel territory. Hours later, Nathan and his Varelian escort entered the ruined streets of the city. Smoke curled from broken buildings, and the air smelled of fire and dust. The rebels had made their stand here, and Nathan could feel watchful eyes from the shadows. Celia walked beside him, her hand resting on the hilt of her energy blade. Stay close. If anything happens, we will eliminate the threat. Nathan nodded, but kept his real thoughts hidden. As they moved deeper into the ruins, a group of rebel soldiers stepped out of the shadows, their weapons raised. The leader, a tall, scared alien with dark silver skin, narrowed his eyes at Nathan. You are the human, the rebel leader said. The Queen's chosen. Nathan raised his hand slowly. I'm not here to fight. I just want to talk. The rebels hesitated. Then, after a tense moment, the leader gestured. Very well. Speak. Nathan took a breath. He had to be careful. He couldn't make it seem like he was betraying Zaira, or else Celia would kill him on the spot. You're fighting for freedom, right? Nathan asked. The rebel leader's eyes darkened. We fight because the Queen's rule is absolute. She does not listen. She does not bend. Nathan nodded. And what if that changed? The rebels looked at each other in confusion. Nathan continued. She put me in a position of power because she knows her empire is in trouble. She's looking for a way to secure her rule, but that also means she's open to change." The rebel leader frowned. "You expect us to believe that?" Nathan steeled himself. "You don't have to. But if you keep fighting like this, you'll lose, and she'll only tighten her grip on your people." The rebels exchanged uncertain glances. The tension in the air shifted. Nathan could tell they were listening. But then, a distant explosion rocked the ground. Celia's communicator crackled to life. "Captain, the Queen's forces are attacking another sector. She is not waiting for negotiations." Nathan's heart dropped. Xira never planned to negotiate. She had used this mission to buy time, distracting the rebels while she launched a full-scale attack elsewhere. The rebels realized it too. "You lie, eat it," the leader snarled, stepping back, weapons raised. Celia drew her blade, her golden eyes sharp. "We are leaving. Now." Nathan's mind raced. He had one chance. If he left with Xira's warriors, he would never get another opportunity. If he stayed, he would be branded a traitor. He had to decide. Run back to Xira, or take the risk and escape with the rebels. His choice would change everything. Nathan Carter stood frozen as chaos erupted around him. The rebel leader's eyes burned with betrayal, and his soldiers raised their weapons, ready to strike. Captain Celia stood at his side, her energy blade glowing bright, her stance tense and ready for battle. The explosion in the distance sent shockwaves through the ruined city, and Nathan knew he had seconds to decide. He could return to Queen Tyra, remain under her rule, and continue playing the part of her king. He would have power, protection, and a place in the most powerful empire in the galaxy. Or he could side with the rebels, risking everything for a future that was far from certain. Nathan took a deep breath. Then he made his choice. Betraying the Queen. Nathan turned to Celia, his expression unreadable. "We're staying." Celia's golden eyes widened. "What?" Nathan clenched his fists. "Xira never wanted peace. She used me to distract the rebels while she launched her attack. I won't be part of that." The rebel leader narrowed his gaze. "How do we know this isn't another trick?" Nathan stepped forward, dropping his only weapon, a small energy dagger, onto the ground. He raised his hands in surrender. "You don't," he admitted, "but if I wanted you dead, I would have let Xira's forces finish you off." The tension in the air was thick. Then, after a long moment, the rebel leader signaled to his soldiers. "Lower your weapons," he ordered. Nathan exhaled, relieved. But his moment of victory was short-lived. Celia stared at him with shock and anger. "You are making a mistake, human." "No," Nathan said, turning to her. "Xira made the mistake when she thought she could control me." Celia's jaw tightened. She looked at the rebels, then back at Nathan. For a moment, it seemed like she might fight him herself. Then, she pressed a button on her wrist communicator. "Captain to command," she said. "Kane Nathan is missing. I am returning alone." Nathan's breath caught in his throat. She was letting him go. Without another word, Celia turned and walked away, vanishing into the shadows. Nathan wasn't sure if he had just earned an ally or made a deadly enemy. The battle for the Empire. The rebels wasted no time. With Nathan now on their side, they moved quickly, launching a full-scale counterattack. Nathan wasn't a soldier, but he was a strategist. He studied the battle map, found weaknesses in Xira's forces, and helped turn the tide of war. The Queen's fleets were strong, but the rebels knew the city better. They used hidden tunnels, ambushes, and surprise attacks to push Xira's army back. Nathan's mind raced with one final thought. This war wouldn't end until Xira herself was defeated. The final confrontation. Hours later, Nathan stood at the entrance of the royal palace. The battle still raged outside, but he had only one goal now, facing Xira. The throne room was eerily quiet when he entered. The golden walls shimmered like liquid fire, casting reflections across the floor. And there, seated on her throne, was Queen Scifi. She looked calm, as if she had been waiting for him. "So," she said, her voice smooth but heavy with emotion, "you have returned, not as my king, but as my enemy." Nathan took a deep breath. "You gave me no choice." Scifi studied him for a long moment. Then she stood, stepping down from her throne. "You are wrong," she said. "You always had a choice. You could have ruled beside me. You could have had everything." Nathan shook his head. "At what cost? Freedom. My own soul." Scifi's expression darkened. "I would have made you powerful, Nathan. But now, I must destroy you." She raised her hand, and the walls of the throne room pulsed with energy. The air grew heavy, and Nathan felt a wave of pure force slam into him, knocking him to the ground. But he wasn't alone. The rebels stormed the palace, their weapons raised. The battle had finally reached the heart of the empire. Scifi's golden eyes flashed with rage. "You think you can take my throne?" Nathan pushed himself to his feet. "No, but I think it's time for a new ruler." The end of a reign. The battle was fierce, but in the end, Scifi was defeated. Her own generals turned against her when they saw that the people no longer feared her. As the palace fell, Scifi was captured. The mighty queen, once unstoppable, was now a prisoner of her own people. Nathan stood over her as the rebels took control. "You never needed a king," he said. "You needed to listen." For the first time, Scifi looked tired. "You were always different, Nathan," she said softly. "That is why I chose you." Nathan turned away, knowing that his time in the Varelian Empire was over. His fight was won. But his journey, that was just beginning. The end.